Okay, everyone. Well, welcome to today's meeting, the guest speaker series. Uh, so, I have a little announcement, maybe not so little, but Craig Earnshaw, the man who was supposed to be here as a guest speaker, had to cancel just like last minute right before this call. So, okay, what I'm going to do, because I know there's some of you that were really excited to, to hear from him. I'm going to see if he can reschedule the next week or two, but I've talked to him before, and so I wanted to go over some of the notes that he discussed with me about starting tech businesses, and I'd also like to share some of the principles that I've learned in the past that I've seen really successful with just starting and maintaining businesses in general within the tech industry. So, but yeah, like I say, we're going to get him to come back on. This should be pretty exciting, but I feel like I should be able to answer most questions as for now. I know it's not typical, but I know you guys were looking forward to this, and so I still wanted to give you guys something for showing up today. So, without further ado, let's dive right into this. So, tech business, what is that exactly? I know there's a lot of different terms that people use for this, but today I'm going to be speaking more about software engineering. I would say if you're able to find any business that's able to be related to technology or just like a more modern company, that's going to do really well because there's already several other companies that are more traditional and kind of like doing the old way of things. But if you're able to find and create a company that's doing the new way of things, then you're going to be a lot more successful and just be able to get a lot more customers. So, but yeah, specifically today when I'm saying tech, we're going to be talking about just more of software. But this should apply to every company out there as well. So, so one thing that that Craig did share with me in the past was why he is an investor within just tech in general. The reason for him being an investor is that he's able to make sometimes up to 4,000 times his money. So meaning that if he puts $1 into invest, he can get like $4,000 back. The reason for this is that just tech software programming companies have huge margins. What I mean by that, so for those of you who aren't familiar with margins, it's very simple. It's just meaning that usually, like if you're selling, something like at the market, let's just say food for example, like vegetables, right? It may cost you about maybe like just like $1 to get an apple like in bulk. Like so, if you have 100 apples to sell, then you sell it for $5. You still have the cost of being there or like actually getting the apple, but then you need to pay someone to be there. And there's all these other costs that are equated into just normal products, right? But with software, you don't have those costs. There's not the costs or the what's called COGS. We'll get into this later for those of you who aren't familiar, but it's cost of goods sold. And so yeah, you don't have to worry about software. You just worry about the upfront cost, and then from there, it's huge margins because if you're selling a service for let's just say 300 USD to a company, then you're gonna be getting huge margins off that because it's costing you something up front. So the early customers can pay for that, and after that, it's pretty much all profit. And this is something we'll dive into later, just about something to call it 3Ms of business and just how to make your business really successful with these three things. So one of them is margins, but that's why it's so important. Okay, wait, I think this might be Craig joining us right now. Okay, awesome. Well, I guess Craig is going to be able to join after all, so we're going to go ahead and hear from him now, and I'll get you guys, I'll just get him up to speed real quick. Okay. Hey Craig, how's it going?
Sorry about that. For some reason it wouldn't let me in, but I'm in now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well I just got started a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
But no, I was just introducing the people, just telling them a little bit about you. You're an investor for just these B2B companies, or just more of like tech software. And I would just explain to them a little bit more about why just businesses are so successful in the B2B sector when it comes to just profitability because of the margins just from selling to
Okay.
just a program. So, but yeah, would you mind introducing yourself a little more and just get a little bit more of your background?
Looks like it's just the two of us. Where is it?
Yeah, so this call is being streamed on YouTube Live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so as questions come in, then I can go ahead and read those to you.
So I'm a software entrepreneur. I had a company called LifeLink that I ran for 25 years, and then I sold the company in '04. And I was doing some service for the church. So when I finished in '06, then I didn't have a company, and I needed to find something to do. So I became an angel investor. I've been investing in startups since '06, '07, around there. And I've invested in about 40. I'm currently in about 20. And I really, really like that, being involved with startups. So hopefully today we can talk about some things that will help you think about your startup ideas.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, could you tell us a little bit more about the company that you first started back in the day?
Yeah. So I have a degree in computer science, but I didn't want to be a programmer. So I took a job that I thought would help me get into business school, which was selling life insurance, which was a really bad choice, and I was a terrible life insurance salesman. But you never know where life's going to take you. So while while trying to learn the life insurance industry, and while floundering around, I realized that they needed some computer help. So I prevailed on my agency manager to buy a computer, and I started writing programs to sell life insurance. So life insurance illustrations, we called them. And I did them first just for my associates, but then I started selling them to outside the agency, and that's where the company was born. So about a year into it, I said to my agency manager, I said, look, this is a lot bigger than just the agency, so I need to set up separately. And amazingly enough, he agreed. He let me buy the computer from him and set it up. This is back in '77, so before the PC. So everything was done over the phone lines, time sharing, which we don't even do anymore. It's pre-internet. But anyway, that's how we started, and that's what we did for 25 years. LifeLink and the product, which was called WinFlex, became the standard for high-end life insurance illustrations. It still is used by 35 of the top 50 insurers. It's all life insurance agents who sell big policies use our software. I won't say all. There's probably a few exceptions, but pretty darn everybody. I used to love going to trade shows where life insurance agents got together, and they'd come by, and everybody would tell me how important our software was for their business. So that's the real payday for a software entrepreneur.
That's awesome. So early on, did you imagine your life as being a software entrepreneur?
No, not at all. I thought I'd go to business school and be a manager at IBM.
Oh, you'd be a manager. Okay, cool. So, but it sounds like it's been a pretty meaningful career, right? I mean, just
yeah. I mean, the takeaway I would give to each of you is that you never know where it's going. So, make each decision based on the best information you get at the moment, which in my case was to go take the life insurance job. But then you're into it when you find out you're not doing so well and there might be another opportunity, then you go to the best opportunity at that moment. And the other thing is, I would say, is own each one of your decisions. Never look back. I mean, you made a decision based on information you had at the moment. And it was a good one. Let's assume it was a good one. So don't spend any time rethinking it later. Make the best of the new situation, whatever it is, or go to a better situation if you find it.
That's great. I love that. And something, if you could touch on this is something we talked about in a previous call, but that was how can people who want to start a software company, how can they find problems? And you mentioned that you advise people to go work for a company for a little bit and just to figure out if there's problems. And could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I teach a class in entrepreneurship at BYU, and it's in the computer science department. So these are all computer science seniors who are programmers, and and they typically are thinking about going to being programmers. But I try to stress to them that they really don't know where they're going. They don't know what the future holds. And lots of them have software ideas, but unfortunately, when they're in school, most of them are focused around students. Students solving the problem of students standing in line, which I'm like, no, we're not going to try to solve that problem. There's no money in it. Or they want to help students meet up. And I'm like, that's been tried a million times and it doesn't work. Let's try to find a meaningful problem. And I believe it's very difficult as students or as young people to find meaningful problems. So the best way is to go get a job. And what you do when you get a job is you first find out how the world works. Your company's going to teach you how they do things. And as you go through that process, you'll find out how things work, but you'll also find out how things don't work. And every time you find out something that's not working, that's a business opportunity. But that's a real business opportunity, because those are real businesses, those are real problems. And if you find a good one, then that's the best way to launch a business. If I was launching a software business, I would always want to launch a business where I sell to other businesses. It's called B2B, not B2C, which is selling to end users. You know, selling a product, a service to an end user is just really hard. But selling to businesses, like I did, I sold to life insurance companies, much, much easier.
And how is that easier?
Well, here's a couple of ideas. First of all, businesses always pay their bills. Always. Businesses would rather pay their bill and fight about it afterwards rather than end users who like to skip paying bills and say, I didn't get what I was supposed to get or whatever. So number one, businesses always pay their bills. And then typically they're always going to be bigger. So if you're selling consumers, you might be selling a $10 or $15 a month service. If you're selling businesses, you're going to be selling a $500 or $1,000 a month business. So you only have to make fewer sales, and you have to take care of fewer clients. In my case, I only had about 40 life insurance companies when we got to our biggest, but they were paying us $10,000 to $20,000 a month, and that's so much easier than having, say, 25,000 insurance agents, individual agents, paying me $10 or $15 a month. The total revenue is the same. I just made up those numbers, so I don't know if that comes out the same, but you get the point. The total revenue is the same, but you have much fewer customers to deal with.
That's great. That's great.
You might think it's harder to sell businesses. I'm telling you, it's not. It's if you identify a real need and find a solution that works, then businesses are just as anxious to buy as individual consumers.
That's great. And so, especially just with the companies that you're invested in right now, do you know how they're reaching out to businesses and how they've been most successful? Do they do like social media or just direct sales?
I'm in Utah. I know this group is kind of spread around. I'm in Utah, and in Utah we have lots of B2B companies, large companies, Qualtrics, Podium, Domo, and I could probably name 5 or 10 more. These are all enterprise sale companies. They're selling large pieces of software to large companies. And that's all done with direct sales. So, I know Podium because I'm invested in them and I've known them from the beginning. They have almost 1,000 employees. A third of those are salespeople. And it sounds crazy, But and especially to me, because in my organization I never even had a salesperson, somebody who all they did was sell. We ours was ours was a very different business. So, but anyway, uh, B2B enterprise is always done direct sales. Somebody picks up the phone and talks to somebody in the company, and that goes on for 3 to 4 months, and they make a sale. But those are typically big sales. Um, you know, there's obviously there's lots of ways to sell. The internet websites being a really good one, but I teach in my class that putting up a website and hoping is not a strategy. So you can design a really good website, and it can take orders from anybody who happens to find it, but that's only half the battle. The other half of the battle is you have to figure out how to drive people to the website. And that's what most people fail in. They think because they have a website up that they're going to be successful, and that is not the case.
Yeah. Well, something I found too pretty on was just marketing in general is that it always, just like in fishing, it's always good to have multiple poles out, not just put all your luck in one pole, but just set up multiple poles, whether it's direct sales website.
You should be using, if you're marketing through the internet, you should be using everything. Social media, all of the social media platforms, especially today, influencers, if you can find people who do blogs and have followings, those are fantastic ways to get yourself launched. In my class, whenever there's a consumer-focused business, I tell them, I don't even want to talk to you about this business until you come back to me and you tell me that you've got an influencer who's willing to work with you on this idea. Because like I've got somebody in the class right now, they want to do a pantry management system for kitchens. So you put in what you bought when you come home from the grocery store, and then you put it in again as you use it, and then the app will tell you what you have in your pantry, which everybody thinks that's a great idea. It's so hard to do because the input's so hard. But anyway, I said, okay, great. Let's say you get that thing working like a just humming along, perfectly done app. So what? What are you gonna do with it now? Every single mother or cook or whatever however you want to define your market is a prospect. How do you reach somebody like that? It's impossible. But if you find an influencer who's got 50,000, some mother or some cook, whatever it is, who has 50,000 followers, and he or she says to you, I love the idea, I will work with you, and then I'll present it to my followers. Okay, now you might have a chance. But you absolutely do not have a chance if you put up an app and put it in the app store and hope. That is a recipe for great disappointment.
And I would also say disaster as well. I find that a problem with so many companies. The number one struggle they have is their marketing, because they can have an amazing product, they can have an amazing team, but if they're kind of like in a desert, like there's no one to see the product, then they're just going to fail. So I love that.
Yeah, to me, it's not hard. It's so obvious that especially. So look, the temptation is we'll stick with this one app. Everybody's got a kitchen, everybody's got a pantry. So you think, wow, that's an awesome idea because everybody's my prospect. Well, that's actually a terrible place to be in, because everybody your prospect, there's no way to focus your message. It's really hard to then get anybody to wake up and want it.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Okay, so we just had a question come in from Susan, who's in the program in actually Ghana. And Susan, thank you for this. If you all have any other questions, please just make sure to send those in. But her question is, how can one start a tech business with no experience? And if I could just add to this as well, because I imagine there's probably many people out there who see the value in the tech industry, but they're not an experienced programmer. And so, yeah, going along with it, would you advise those types of people to go and get it, really experienced with the programming language, or can they just see the problem and then just go and make the company?
Yeah. Okay. So let's broaden the picture. So I'm super focused on tech and B2B startups. That's all I do. So maybe I'm not the perfect speaker for this group, but these are principles that work in all businesses. So here's what I would say: follow the same. I mean, tech may not be an option for you if you don't know how to program and you don't have the equipment or the ability or the opportunity to go through some kind of a coding course. Don't worry about that. Still do as I've suggested and get a job doing something. And then as you're working in your job, try to figure out what the problem is that this business and similar businesses would have. And then those are all business opportunities. Obviously, if you have limited resources, it's much more difficult to launch a business. But I mean, the way that I launched my business, I would say I totally cheated. So let me go back and just give you the cheating steps, and you can see how it will work, and maybe try to apply this in your situation. So I'm a college student. I'm a college graduate. I have no money. And I'm a failing life insurance agent. So how am I going to better my situation? I go to my agency manager and I say, look, I have this skill. I can program. And by the way, I couldn't really program. When you come out of school with a degree in computer science, you're pretty worthless. I mean, I hired a whole bunch of entry-level programmers, and they're worthless to me. For the first 4 or 5 months, I have to teach them everything to make them valuable to the company. So when that computer arrived in my agency in 1977, I had no shot. That never should have worked because I had never programmed commercially. But I didn't know that. Nobody else knew it. And I just started. And opportunities then open up. So I'm now selling inside my agency. That's as big as it got. But I begin to have people say to me, wow, I'd like to be able to do that, use that. So I then think about it and say, this would be much better if I was bigger than just the agency. So what do? I go to the agency manager. I say, can I buy the computer and set up outside? I'll sell to you at a reduced price, but I need to also sell to other people. And he didn't want to pay my full salary either. So he liked the idea. So he sold me the computer. But I didn't have any money. So I said, I have to make payments on the computer would you accept payments over 2 years? And guess what? He said yes. So all of a sudden, the only thing I have to do is go find an office, which I found a cheap office. And all of a sudden I'm in business for myself. Crazy, but that's how it worked. And I mean, I had a couple other experiences along the way where I probably should have gone out of business, but I took advantage of the situation, and the company continued to grow. So I would say that in your situation, in Ghana, in the U.S., wherever, the key thing is to get in motion. That is to get a job doing something, hopefully something that you like to do, and then be observant and be aggressive in thinking about how you could solve problems that business faces.
That's great. And I think that's great that you had that story. I don't think that's really cheating. I think that's how most businesses should start, because the problem most companies have is that they seek investment. They're like, okay, now we're actually going to build a product, and then it's something that the customer actually doesn't want. But that's cool. Like, you actually found people that wanted it, and then that's when you kind of took the steps moving forward. But would you actually mind talking to us a little bit more about that, Craig? Because previously we discussed that a lot of the tech companies that you see getting started that fail are the ones who say, oh, we have this need in our company, or even an tech entrepreneur says, hey, I think this would be really cool, program or something, but just to find out that people don't really need it in the long
Yeah.
run. So could you talk a little bit more like just about validation and how to go about that?
Yeah. So this is the key thing that I teach in my class. We teach that the old way was to write a business plan, which really means that you sit at your desk, or you sit in your home, and you think about all the ways that you could solve a problem that you think you understand, and then you create a business to provide that solution. The best example of this being done wrong is a company in the U.S. called Webvan, and Webvan was going to be the original Instacart, where they would deliver groceries. You would order groceries online, and they would deliver them to your home. And Webvan thought they were really smart, and they raised. Are you ready? They raised $100 million because investors thought they were smart too. Not only did they raise it, they spent it. They set up a network of warehouses and trucks, or vans, I guess, because it was called Webvan. and they launched in San Francisco area, which was probably a good idea. But they had a big network already set up nationwide. And they had spent, I don't know, most of their, I say 100 million, but now as I think about it, I think it was 400 million.
That's a lot. That's a ton.
And they hadn't done exactly what we're talking about here, which was go out and talk to the customers and to the grocery stores to enough of extent to understand what it would take to make this happen. And I don't know all the reasons why it failed, but I do know that they, over about 6 months, Webvan generated about $1 million in revenue and then failed. They closed it up. And to this day, to read that story just makes me want to cry, because I think about what I could have done with 10 million of that $400 million, or even 2 million. I never got capital to work with, and I didn't raise investor capital in my company. But anyway, the opposite of what Webvan did is what we teach in the class, which is to think about your idea, and then here's the key question that you want to ask people. In order to validate your idea, you need to be able to state the problem and then your solution. And you need to be able to do that in 1 or 2 sentences. Not everybody takes 5 minutes to explain their solution. That's really bad. You need to be able to say, the problem is most people don't know what's in their pantry, and we have a solution with very simple input, which will allow you at any moment to know exactly what's in your pantry, so you can know either what you can cook tonight or what you need to buy at the store. Now that's pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
All right, then here's the key question. Having done that, problem, solution, you've made it clear in your potential customer's mind. This is an interview. And then you ask this question, and you have to ask the question exactly the way I'm going to give it to you. And then you have to be quiet when you finish the question. Don't say anything and let them answer. So what you say is this. So now that I explained our idea, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is, that's boring, or 10, wow, here's my credit card, I want to buy that today, how would you rate that idea? Zip it. Stop talking. Listen. The number that they give you will be the most important thing that you get out of that interview. And if the number is 7 or greater, if the average of the numbers that you get from the people that you interview is 7 or greater, then you have a decent idea. You're on your way. If it's not, if it's too hard to explain, if they don't get it or they don't want it, then you should stop and rethink things. That's called the wow factor question. and it's not my invention. It's invented by a guy at BYU named Eric Espinoza, and he actually has a company called Venture Validator that uses that. But I love that question, and I force my students to do that in their first validation assignment. In fact, that is the validation assignment, to go out and get the wow factor, the average wow number, so they can come back and tell me what their business idea is worth.
No, I love that. I've heard different ways of that being put, but I love how straightforward that is, like the 0 to 10, because as you discussed in the beginning of this video, there's millions of problems that could be solved in this world, and you mentioned like the example of like students waiting in line. Like that is a problem, but it's not like people are going to be paying for it, and students aren't really ones with the biggest pockets. So I love what you said there, just about making sure that people can actually pay for it, and there actually is a business behind that. So that's great. Okay, so we just had some other questions come in.
Sure.
Okay, so Jerry asked, what are some of the most common types of tech businesses? And then what is the strategy to establish a tech business?
Tech businesses? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Jerry, where are you located?
Jerry is in Ghana.
Okay. So obviously Ghana would be a completely different market than the one I'm used to. But there is still, tech has taken over the world, and I don't know exactly where Ghana is in its progression. But one of the things we talk about in one of my classes is different types of markets. And here's what I would say, Jerry. One of the best ideas, and I tell my class that we're not even going to talk about it, but I do believe it's one of the best ideas that if it's something they want to pursue, it's what we call a clone market. And a clone market is where you take an idea that works really well in another country and bring it into yours. So here's what I would recommend. Study the new businesses that are popping up in the U.S. and find one that's not in Ghana at the moment. You're not stealing ideas. Yeah, you are. Sure.
Yeah.
You're borrowing ideas. But there's nothing wrong with that. If a company's operating in the U.S. and they're not operating in Ghana and you want to offer the same service, there's nothing wrong with that. They don't have the right to stop you from doing it in another country, and unless they've come into the country themselves. So I would recommend studying. It doesn't have to be the U.S. It could be any other country. Find out what's working, maybe in other African countries, and then you could be the one to bring it into Ghana.
No, I love that idea too. And just going off that, when I first heard the idea of like cloning businesses, like I felt a little guilty about it. But when it comes down to it, like you're not doing, like if there's a company here in the U.S. and if you're starting in Ghana, for instance, like that company's not gonna really care because they're already profitable in the U.S. Like they have their own structure, but you're actually doing a service to like the people in your own country or anywhere else if you're able to bring that service to them. So I think that's a great idea.
There is one other approach. You could call up the U.S. company and say, "I love what you're doing, and I want to do it in Ghana, but I don't actually want to do all the programming. Is there any way that I could be your representative and sell here in Ghana? Or I could maybe hire a small programming team, or I could get together a small programming team, and we could make the modifications that are necessary for Ghana." So you could work a partnership with the U.S. company as well. But if you had the resources, setting up your own company, doing what's being done in another country will obviously be the best for you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. Okay, and then the next question Jerry had after that is, what is this strategy of starting a tech business? Are there like a few steps that need to take place? Maybe just from going to the like beginning to maybe like the, I don't know, like just small, not like, so kind of like in between like the startup phase.
Well, so here's the reason we love tech, and the reason you should love tech. when I started LifeLink in 1977, there was no internet. There was just basic computer languages, and all of the infrastructure has to be built. When we first went on the internet, I had to buy servers, and you can't just put a server on the internet. You have to have, so if you want to put one application on the internet, it takes a minimum of 5 or 6 servers, because you have to have servers that actually do the calculations for the service that you're providing. In my case, it was life insurance calculations. So we originally started off with 3 calculation servers. Then you have a load management server. You have another server that just sits there doing your security and protection. You may have a server just running your billing. I had to do all of that stuff. It was a mess. It took forever. I had to hire network specialists just in my company. Guess what? Nothing is required like that today. You open up an account on AWS, Amazon Web Services, or one of the other competitors. When you start out small, it's free. It's free. You can actually put up a business making money and run on AWS for free for as long as it stays small. So when you put your first customer, your second customer up, it's going to be free, or like $5 a month. I mean, it's nothing. They have all of the database and billing and all of that it's like menu driven. You pull it down. It's so simple and so easy that compared to what it was, I'm not saying it's going to be done in a day, but it's so much easier than it was that your life is easy. The main thing today is to define a good problem and then figure out what the solution needs to offer, because the programming side and then the execution side is actually much, much easier.
That's great. That's great. I love that. Okay, so this is kind of a similar question. Jabba asked, what is the first thing to do when starting a tech business? So I think this would obviously the first thing would be to find the problem. What would you say after the problem? Like,
so if you're really going to be a tech entrepreneur, I would say you need to be able to program. So you need to go through a programming course, and you don't need to be a great programmer, but you need to appreciate what your developers are going to be doing for you. And after that, either you need to learn web services, AWS, and everything that's associated with it, or you need to find somebody that you can partner with that knows that. Because if you have somebody in the company that has those skills, you're going to be able to put up a solution. Then the other piece is you need to find somebody, or you need to learn web marketing. So SEO, SEM, SEO is search engine optimization. You need to figure out how to get your web presence to be strong and identifiable. And that does take work. I mean, it takes some knowledge and some skill and some work, but that's just pushing buttons on a computer. That's pretty easy work. So I would get those three pieces. One is somebody who understands and is going to lead the problem solution part of the business. That's probably you. Then you got to find somebody who is the web genius, the developer and the web genius. So that would be your CTO, Chief Technical Officer. And then you need somebody who understands web marketing or just marketing in general. That's your CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. And with those 3 skills, I think you can launch a web company or a tech company.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And for Job and everyone else watching, that's part of the reason why I've set up the Firewall the way it is, where there's multiple teams who do different things. Just because there's going to be multiple companies set up, and I hope that we can all be a resource for each other to, get something set up, because it's with startup life, you're going to wear many hats, but it's hard to, be doing everything at once. So
it is very hard.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Craig, I think it's about time to wrap things up. I do have one final question for you.
Okay.
You said that you're involved with, investing in 20 different companies right now, which is I don't know how are you able to do all of that, but what is maybe top 1 to 3 things that you see companies that are like making huge profit, major money right now, just growing really fast, doing really well. What are the top things they're doing, and then what are some companies that have failed, and what did they do wrong that you've seen?
Um, well, the companies I know that are doing well have identified a business problem, a good business problem. So, I mean, there's a slew of them just down the street here in Utah Valley, and um, what they do right is they identify the idea like we talked about, but then they get a sales organization and they just go and sell. And the way that you develop, well, that's probably not going to help much. So yeah, let's just leave it at that. So I would go back again to those 3 basic skills: execution on your problem itself, web skills if you're building a tech business, and then sales. And the ones who have failed are the ones who don't figure out how to sell. And selling that I'm talking about is not the guy trying to close on the phone. So, not that guy. It's where the failure is positioning yourself and getting your message to the potential customers. So if your company's working, you should see sales just skyrocket. I know that Podium, for example, went from sales of about 100. When I first met them, they had annual sales of about 180,000, so $15,000 a month. The second year that they were in business, they went to, let me see if I can get these numbers right. So that was 180,000. Then they did about 2 million, and then they did about 13 million in the third year.
Wow.
So that's a astronomical growth. And when you're small, you should be. If your idea is actually working, it should look like that. It should be, you're not even talking about year-over-year growth. Month over month, you should be doubling. So think about that. If you had $10,000 in monthly revenue, all your customers paid you $10,000 last month. This month, you're going to sell $10,000 of new customers also. And these are repeating businesses, so they're paying you every month. It's recurring revenue. So you sell a new 10,000, now you're 20,000 a month, and then you go to 40,000, and that's what we see from those that are successful. And the ones that aren't growing are absolutely dying. If they're not growing like that, and you don't have to grow that fast, obviously, but if you're not doubling or close to doubling annually, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, that's incredible though. That's talk about a Utah unicorn. That's a pretty incredible growth. But yeah, awesome. Well, Craig, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a really amazing call. Are there any last pieces of advice that you would like to leave with this group before we head off?
I sense that some of the things that I've talked about are going to seem like they're out of reach for some of you in maybe some of the countries that you're in. So I would just end up by going back to the clone idea, and then maybe even on a higher level, just the idea of being aware. Don't settle. Don't, because say people have always done things a certain way, and maybe the way to be successful in your area is to just do this. I would say don't settle for that. Be open and be questioning and try to create for yourself your own opportunities. Maybe something that hasn't even been done before. But you have the internet, you have access to lots of good ideas. Don't settle for the way it's always been done. Be the agent for change, and in the process, you'll be glad. Your life will be a good life. And I guess I'll finish up with this thought. If you do it for the money, if your sole motivation is money, I think you have a hard road ahead of you. But if your motivation is to create real value and to make customers happy because you solved the problem for them, then you have a good chance of succeeding. So if your motivation is solely money, I feel bad for you. But if your motivation is to solve problems for people and to get paid for doing it, I think you have a chance of success.
Awesome. Well, Craig, thank you so much. Those were some great thoughts.
Good to meet you today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you could make it. So, Craig, yeah, if there's ever anything else we can do for you, just let us know. It's been a really great meeting today, and I've really learned from your responses. I imagine everyone else has as well. So,
I'm happy to talk with anybody who would like to, bounce ideas off me, or that's what I do. So, do they have my email? I'm happy if you give it out.
Oh yeah, no, I can. If you're all right with it, I could definitely just attach that in our. We have like a Slack channel for everyone, so I can send that to them there.
Yeah, I do not have a Slack channel, but you can just give them my email. I'm happy to respond to emails.
Okay, sweet, awesome. I'll make sure to give them your email then. So.
Okay.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much.
Just reference Firewheel, and that way I'll know how we got to know each other.
Sweet. Awesome.
Because I have to tell you that most emails that I get from Africa, I ignore, because they're all the famous scams that come out from foreign countries. So if you just say Firewheel, we'll know what it's all about.
Yeah, I guess that'll be kind of like the code words. So yeah, it's great. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Craig, and we'll see you around.
Okay, good to be with you today. Good to be with all of you. Good luck.